What is going on, guys? My name's Abby and I wanted to share a little bit about jiu-jitsu if you are just starting off or you're thinking about starting. Some of the things that I've learned as I've trained for over 6 years and what I wish I knew when I first started out, right? This is also kind of going to be gearing towards not just beginners but women too. Because this is becoming more and more well known in the US, I figured this would be a really good video if you aren't exactly sure how to go about starting jiu-jitsu. So let's get going. So, first things first, if you've gone into a jiu-jitsu school, there are so many different kinds of schools out there, right? Ones that are more old school, ones that are modern, so you'll see and feel the vibe can be a little bit different depending on what school you're at and the region that you are in. So when I started off, I had come back just starting school in upstate New York. So the school that I was going to there, it was modern, but it had old school tendencies as far as really being about discipline and respect, knowing where your spot was on the mat as far as being a white belt, and then also there was just that female-male tension that wasn't always horrible, but you could tell that there wasn't a lot of girls at the time training. And then by the time I actually left that school because I had moved, there were a ton of girls. But when I first started off, there wasn't a ton in that same school. So depending on if you have a lot of girls in your school or not, along with if it's more modern or old school, that can kind of change the dynamic. But I'm going to try to give you as best as I can what I've learned so that it's able to be applied in any and every school, just because you are in fact a beginner, right? But we all start from square one, so you're not alone in that. Which brings me to my first point. I was gonna draw or write something. I still may at the end, but I want to talk about it first. Okay, so the first thing is when you're starting off, a lot of it can feel overwhelming or you just can't seem to remember everything at once. And it's okay. You tend to try to have a fight or flight instinct that you're trying to control at the time, and you might find that you're spazzy, right? A lot of jokes out there and memes because white belts are spazzy. I was actually one of the worst ones because I have a competitive side, I am into sports, and I was just more spazzy. And I had actually been pulled aside at one point because I had been rolling with so many men that when I went to roll with girls, I didn't know how to control that level of intensity as well as aggression, and so they had to tell me to take a chill pill, and that was really embarrassing for me because I thought I was okay, but in fact it was just, you have to be able to learn to control and know that you are a beginner, and that's okay, but learn and have that acceptance of I don't know, that's okay. I have to take what I can get right now and just learn and grow with that. And it's okay to feel lost and confused. Especially for women, if you're not naturally instinctively like a go-getter after this kind of sport, but you're easing into it, you're finding yourself that you like it, but you're not like super gung-ho, but you know that you can get to that point. I highly encourage you to just be consistent and once again remind yourself, I don't have to give a reason as to why I don't know it, or an excuse as to like, oh sorry, it's just that this happened, or I think a lot of times even as you get to a more advanced belt, if you practice these kind of habits of making excuses or reasons why something wasn't executed or why you did something incorrectly, it can kind of follow through, and I've seen even upper belts have this kind of tendency, and we have to be careful, right? So go in with that learning mindset of saying like, I don't know, and that's okay. And then also on top of that, have that mindset mentality where you say, if I don't get something, I have to keep going, right? Or if I do this and it's not the right way, which most of the time it isn't when you're starting off, don't give an excuse. Just think of, okay, how can I make it better? What is something that I could do to avoid this happening again, right? Getting stuck on the bottom or getting stuck with somebody on side control, right? Those are things where I find that people will just be like, oh, this always happens. Oh, this always happens. Okay, take a step back. What's something that you're seeing that's happening that's getting you caught there? Think of it more of like a strategy and game plan in like 1 or 2 steps. Don't overthink everything, because that's what I tend to do a lot even nowadays. But think, okay, I'm a white belt. What's 1 thing or 2 things that I can do better this week or this time around? When you are communicating with other people on the mat about jiu-jitsu, do your best to find ways and good questions to better yourself instead of saying like, it's because I'm a white belt or it's because of this. People know that. That's not something new, right? So look and see about, okay, what can I do 1 or 2 things better this week? And then asking yourself good questions. Don't allow yourself to have the victim mentality because you feel trapped, you feel lost, and you don't know what's happening because it's the beginning. Everybody knows that stage. Everybody's been there. It's a hard stage to be, but it's also a really exciting place to be because the world is just filled with opportunity in your mind for jiu-jitsu. And you don't know that yet, but you'll start to build on that the more you allow yourself to have that, okay, I'm here to learn. Okay, what can I do better? This is so much fun. I really like rolling with this person. You start to find things that you can hold on to. So during those times or seasons when it gets tough, which I'm gonna come on to next, you can be able to really grab onto the things that you are enjoying, that you are learning, and that you are applying, but also with that reminder of I'm still a white belt and I'm still learning, right? So on to the next point. The first point is be willing to learn and avoid excuses, right? Don't use the it's because I'm just starting, it's because of this, it's because of that. People know that. Don't give yourself that out. Know and walk in that this is going to be just that first step of something big and accept that and have fun with it. Don't allow that like victim mentality to set in, right? Because you're just starting off and there's a lot of other people around you that have been here for years and they know a lot, and you know, that can get overwhelming mentally for a lot of people, especially women in the beginning too. Like if guys aren't respectful, or there are girls that just don't want to respect you either, or they're going really hard and trying to prove a point or whatever it is, don't allow that to control your game because that can in fact happen, right? This is a fun sport, it's an intense sport, it's a beautiful sport where you can also find and learn more about yourself as you're learning about the sport. So don't fall into that victim mentality. That's all I'm saying. Alright, next point is what I had mentioned before, and it's something that I think you need to try to remember from here on out, looking forward, and that is having a learning mentality always. So as you continue to learn and see what other people are doing and see what you are doing and what you're actually applying after classes and stuff like that, you can so easily start to get in your head of like, oh my gosh, I actually know this, I actually know that, and that's not bad at all, right? You want to build that confidence and self-esteem up in your game and just in who you are. But always have this openness and willing to learn, okay, how can I do better? How can I treat my partners better? Jiu-jitsu is huge on respect, responsibility, sportsmanship, you know, discipline, and we can't forget those things. Like that's one of the biggest things that you learn in jiu-jitsu, especially even the older schools. I mean, they're hard on it, and I train in Healy and Gracie. I've always trained, you know, with the idea and passion for being under, you know, the Gracie lineage, just because of how set they are in understanding respect, discipline, responsibility. And so for me, 6 years into this as a purple belt, right, I still love learning new moves. I still love sharpening old moves. There's this never-ending ability to learn, but you have to allow yourself to be open to saying, okay, this could have been better. Okay, this is really good, but allow yourself to ask good questions and learn, because it also will happen, which is it's another meme that people always show up and see, but it's like when you become a blue belt, there's this little spice in you of like, oh, now I know a lot, like I'm getting to a blue belt stage. If you're not there yet, don't even worry about it, but it's gonna happen eventually where you start to build up this confidence because you've gotten beat down so many times in the beginning. Then you start to actually learn how to avoid getting choked and arm barred and triangled, and it's happening maybe a little bit less, but it's still happening, right? And so you get to the blue belt stage and then it's like, oh man, like I actually know stuff now. And it's like, all right, let's take a chill pill. Yes, you learn stuff, yes, you know stuff, but don't confuse that with thinking you know everything, right? And I battled with this. I guarantee you a lot of people battle with this because you've come from being the lowest on the totem pole to now you're not, and it's a little bit strange. So I just encourage you, like, Be open and willing to be humble and learn always. Whether you're a blue belt, black belt, purple belt, brown belt. I mean, even in life, just the people that you see most success, even in jiu-jitsu, in business, whatever, they're just always willing to learn and say like, what else can I know? What else can I understand? And that will get you so far, especially as a woman. You know, doing jiu-jitsu now, it's pretty normalized in a lot of places, but there's still some of that, you know, sexism or whatever around. Like, you can sense it. The girls know what I'm talking about. Don't allow that to stop you from learning. If anything, take that as a challenge of like, how can I readjust and show others that it's not going to be the same thing day in and day out. Whether I'm a woman or not, I can still present myself with grace, with, you know, dignity, and still execute what I need to do and continue to learn. Whatever they say or think, that's on them, right? You're in your journey and you're on your own path. And that's something that sometimes can get hard depending on what gym you are. I thankfully have never had huge issues, but there is always that one or two, you know, those two people that you can sense it, right? And you know, and that's okay, right? Because they're not living your life, they're living their own life, and you can choose whether you want them in it or not, but you will always respect them, right, on the mats. And that's something that's very big for me. So the first thing is, like I had mentioned before, don't create excuses. Don't give yourself an out because you're a white belt. You know, allow yourself to try to understand things, look at it from a different angle. Second thing is, don't stop learning. Don't stop learning. Have this learning mentality continue while staying humble, right? Because you're gonna get better and you're gonna start seeing things and it's gonna be exciting, and there's nothing wrong with confidence, right? Well, we gotta make sure that we're still staying humble. And I have to check myself very often about this, right? 6 years in, I still get humbled. And I'll tell you a funny story at the end about how I had to learn this not long ago, because I started getting very confident in my game, and then as soon as I felt confident enough, of course I get squished, right? And that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. Now onto the last thing is, do your best to be consistent in showing up for classes. Yes, open mat as well. If you have open mat, most gyms do. I always had open mat in all the gyms I went to. I moved around a few times, so I had to move gyms, but try to do a minimum of 3 days a week when starting out, for as long as you can. 3 days is a very good minimum to where you can in fact build off of it. When I started off, I was single. I had only been working really and doing college, so I was busy. But on my free time, all I did, my way out of the chaos of the world, was to train. So I was training 5 and 6 days a week. On Saturdays, I trained twice because they had a women's class, self-defense, and then they had jiu-jitsu, and I would do both. And then I would do the open mats during the week as much as I could after class. And if you have that time, do it. You know, put that extra time in the very beginning. It's amazing for your whole entire game, your life, your health, your mindset, everything, right? If that's something that you enjoy, right? If it's something where you are busy and you're dealing with a lot, still try to do a minimum of 3 days a week. If you really care about something, you're gonna make time for it. And I guarantee you, spending an hour and a half to 2 hours, 3 days a week, it can add up, but I'm going to tell you this, it's going to make life a lot better. Mentally, physically, emotionally. It can be your healthy way out of the world, and just kind of get to know a good group of people and have that healthy accountability. But you have to show up, have people kind of know who you are, have that, you know, relationship building time, and continue to work on yourself during that time as well. And I would say a minimum of 3 days a week is super good. So even now today, you know, we have a puppy, I'm married, I work full time, we're starting a business, and you know, you'll hear more about that later, but there's a lot happening. But right now, where we're at, I'm so focused on jiu-jitsu, and so is my husband, that we're still training like 5 days a week. And thank God, because we don't have kids, we have that time available. But you know, eventually when that happens down the line, I still have to try to put in that time. It might look different. For you, it could look very different, but try your very best in the beginning to create that solid foundation. And to do that, putting in the time like everybody else, right? The people you see that are very advanced, they put in thousands of hours of work. It did not just happen overnight. right? And you have to allow yourself to, once again, make the time and put in that extra work if you want to advance, if you want to get better, if you want to feel more confident in your game. The people that will go and train 1 day a week, 2 days a week, if they have, like, that's their only option, hey, at least they're still showing up. But if you are choosing to only do 2 days a week and you have the availability to do 3 or 4, I highly encourage you to try to do 3 or 4 consistently for the next several months. If you can't, start with 2 months. I hope that was helpful to you guys. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Drop down any questions or comments down below. I hope it was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.